Welcome back. The panel is here. Republican strategist Brendan Book, AYESHA RASCOE, White House correspondent for NPR, Maria Teresa KUMAR, president of VOTO Latino, and Politico White House correspondent and Playbook co-author Eugene Daniels. Welcome all. It's great to see you all. So we've had this endless negotiation, what seems like endless negotiation, and party infighting. AYESHA, let's talk about this. How close are they? We know that Joe Manchin and Chuck Schumer are going to Wilmington as we speak.
Well, they are getting closer, as the White House likes to say. There is urgency now. They're feeling the urgency. I will say, though, it seems like with all of, and look, making the sausage, getting everything together is always not pretty, but it seems like almost like the White House has been too clever for its own good. Like they've been so disciplined about not putting forward exactly where they stand and exactly what they want to do because they don't want to mess up the negotiations. But now you don't know where they stand, and they have not defined this bill.
And Maria Teresa, let's talk about that, because have they focused so much on the dollar figures and what's being cut out? They haven't focused on selling what's in it. And have they lost the Progressive Caucus, if not for votes, have they lost their base?
I don't think they've lost their base, but in part it's because no one knows what's in the bill, I think, including the administration. And so what we're going to see is whether or not they have to give people a little bit on climate. And the reason I say that is that we haven't heard yet from the squad. And the squad recognizes that their supporters, their most extreme progressive base, that's what they care about. And so however those chips fall, that's going to be an indicator. But I also believe that the Democrats, the president, they recognize that this is an existential threat. If they don't pass something on the most important comprehensive package for our generation, for the 21st century, not only is it going to question whether or not people come out and vote for them again, but also the people that get left behind are the American people. That's this ambitious plan, and that's what they need to communicate, to your point.
And I think desperation is a real motivator, and I think that's what you're seeing right now. They've been drifting for a long time, and I think to the point you're making, one of the most interesting things that happened last week, obviously the Biden administration getting engaged, but also progressives signaling that they're going to be much more pragmatic about what happens. They went down to the White House and basically told, here's what's out, this bill is getting cut in half, and they came out of there and instead of saying, we're a no, they were actually leaning into it. So I think that's the most encouraging thing for them. But there are still so many issues that are unresolved. Taxes, Medicare, prescription drugs, the state and local tax, all of these things are up in the air. They could pull it together quickly if they need to, but there's still so many unanswered questions that how can you sell it? And eventually they have to get to that point.
And to Brendan's point on messaging, like they've already started to message, it was 3.5, this was so important, it had to have everything in there. But now they're saying this is still, no matter what, the most money we've ever spent on any of these issues, right? And so you've seen that messaging change in the White House all the way down.
But is it too late? And the other thing is, when you talk about the base, Eugene, let's see, what we heard at the town hall meeting. This is a young man, Thaddeus Price, asking a really tough question of the president.
You received overwhelming support from the Black community, and rightfully so. But now many of us are disheartened as we watch a Congress fail to support police reform. We watch our voting rights vanish before our very eyes.
So, he doesn't really have an answer to that. Voting rights and police reform, neither are getting done.
No, all of those things that Black people talked about so much during the election, President Biden said he'd have their back, and that is what they're saying. So where are you? We're 9-10 months into your administration, and now you're hearing, and we've been hearing for months, activists and people who get people out to vote saying, you have to give us something to go back to Black people and say you did this for them. And that is what they're hoping to see. They haven't seen it, and there's this immense frustration that I think the White House has not really paid as much attention to as Black voters want them to.
And then the president certainly indicated, Brendan, on the filibuster, that he's now willing to concede, especially a carve-out for voting rights. What's the pitfall there? If they lose the midterms and then it comes back to bite them, that's happened before with Mitch McConnell.
It's not only possible, but it's very likely that Republicans are in control of Congress next year. And I understand that they're frustrated, but they keep sort of banging their head against the wall on this. Joe Manchin has said time and time again he's not going to do it. And it's not just Joe Manchin. It's John Tester. It's Kristen Sinema. There's a lot of problems they have to carve out the filibuster. And the reality is this could turn around on them very quickly.
And I do think that they have a very limited time to pass the Freedom to Vote Act. What we're seeing coming out of Texas, out of Georgia, It was what you were asking, Senator Blunt. The fact that they gutted the Voting Rights Act, the congressional redistricting that just came out of Texas, that basically gave communities of color 0 Democratic seats, basically any districts.
In what had been black districts.
Well, black and Latino districts.
And
95% of the growth in Texas was because of people of color. And so now that the local states no longer have pre-clearance for the Department of Justice, they're doing their own shenanigans and writing up all their rights. When people say, well, why don't we pass the Freedom to Vote Act? That is little d democracy. And that is what they need to basically suspend the filibuster, because I deeply believe that once people can vote their values and vote and have access to the voting booth, we will have police reform.
But AYESHA, it's also nullification. Yeah. It's not just access to voting. It's being able to, in all of these states, going legislature to legislature, being able to nullify the votes with secretaries of state being appointed.
And that is why you have all of these activists who are at the White House, who are protesting and saying they want change. It has been interesting because the White House has basically been saying, go to Congress, we're doing what we can do, and not really putting as much, if they say that this is, a make or break issue, but that is not the way the White House has been acting.
We're going to have to leave it there.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.